Did you know your temperament can shape your family and your faith? Let's dive in with Kathleen Edelman, author of I Said This, You Heard That, right here on Kingdom Dads.
What's up, Kingdom Dads? Welcome back. Today, we are diving into the topic of temperaments. We have talked about this coming episode for several weeks now, and I am incredibly honored to be sitting here with Kathleen Edelman. We're going to talk about today why it is so important that you understand your own temperament, but also your spouse and your kids, and how that can benefit your family, in your home, and in the workplace. So, Kathleen Edelman, incredible author of I Said This, You Heard That, as well as a grown-ups guide to kids wiring. We're going to post links in the show notes where you can access her material. You can also check her out at isaidyouheard.com. Kathleen, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here today.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
Well, why don't you just take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of dive into your background.
Okay. Well, I've done this for over 3 decades. I've taught communication and temperaments. My background is in communication, but about 25 years ago, I heard some, which you guys probably don't even remember, some cassette tapes. I'm kind of dating myself now.
I know Tanner
Cassette
doesn't remember those.
And they were on temperament. So when I heard those, I realized I had to know everything I could find out about temperaments because it had to affect communication. So that tied perfectly to a scripture verse that my family, it's my family's verse. It's what my ministry is based on. And that's Ephesians 4:29. And that's all about words. So that's what I do. I've done it, like I said, for 30 plus years. And it's something that I've seen literally marriages change overnight. I've seen parent-children relationships restored. I've seen businesses turn on a dime. And I just think getting this message out to everybody is what God put on my heart.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I couldn't agree more. I know we initially became familiar with you through our church that Nate and I and Tanner all go to here at Northfield locally. I know you came and spoke, and we did a study using I Said This, You Heard That, and it was a game changer for our family. And so we've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, and so before we dive into the different temperaments and how temperament is different from personality and that kind of thing, for me, this is pretty new, right? I was telling you, over the last couple of weeks, I've kind of dove into your book and the different temperaments. I've heard Andrew talking about this color scale for the last year, and I'm like, dude, I'm a pretty dynamic, complex person, right? You can't just wrap me up into 4 colors. But as I've dove into this, it really makes a lot of sense, and I've really enjoyed kind of learning more about this. So, for those guys out there listening that have done the different personality tests, the Myers-Briggs or the DISC or those kind of things, hang with us, guys. This is a different story. This is a different approach, and so hang with us and really give this a chance and figure out what this temperament color scale is all about.
Yeah, Kathleen, why don't we just dive in there and talk about the difference before we get into the 4 temperaments that you talk about. What is the difference between temperament and personality?
Temperament, by definition, is innate. So temperament is like your eye color or your fingerprint. It's unchangeable. Personality evolves over time. So that is birth order, education, where you live, where you sit in the family. So that's constantly changing. So what we have to understand is temperament is what Hippocrates studied 600 years before Jesus walked the earth. So all psychology and all the other personality assessments that you see out there have spun off of temperament. So if we can just solidly get the foundation of temperament, it's going to make all those other assessments so much more workable, because that's what the foundation is that you have these innate needs, and each temperament speaks their own language, and you make your own decisions, and your core motivation comes out of that temperament.
Yeah, so good. I love what you just said. Each temperament speaks their own language. We'll talk about the four colors in a moment. It's funny because for 2 years we've been telling Nate, you're a red, I'm a red. His wife's a blue, my wife's a green. And they're like, what is that? I don't know. What does that mean? I'm a red.
Yeah.
But man,
What'd you call me?
with our daughters, even just the fact that their temperament, one of my daughters is a blue, the other's a yellow, and we have to speak to them very differently to communicate the same type of message. And where
exactly
it's good. I just would have never known that before. So
yeah, and even going back to the title of the book you wrote, I said this, you heard that. It is. You can say you can deliver the same message with different words, and it's completely heard different depending on the temperament.
Absolutely.
Depending on your strengths and weaknesses.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but here's we might want to pause that because I don't want to say I don't want to interrupt. He can cut that out.
No, you're fine.
I want to address what you just said about the cover of the book. The cover of the book is very intentional because when I started, I would use these hand gestures because when I talk, I'm blue and my husband's green. When I talk, he hears. And when he talks, I hear. And there's all this gray area in here. Well, in that gray area is where miscommunication flows. That's where I didn't mean that. That's not what I said. You're blaming me, right? The temperaments gets rid of that gray area. We learn that somebody speaks and hears from a different language. It's a game changer.
That's so good. Well, let's dive into the four different colors and kind of just frame that out for us.
Okay. So since your video, I want to just show this to you. The people, I know there's some listening, but the people that are looking can take a quick glance. This is from the book. And these are the four temperaments. The top two, the yellow and the red, are extroverts. The blue and the green are introverts. The red and the blue, if you went to the side, are task-oriented. And the yellow and the green are people-oriented. So that's the first foundation of temperaments. Each temperament speaks their own language. The yellow speaks the language of people and fun. The red speaks the language of power and control. The blue speaks the language of perfection and order. And the green speaks the language of calm and harmony. So when you do the assessment, it's not a test. You cannot fail it. When you do the assessment honestly, you are going to have a dominant and a secondary temperament. It's going to be horizontal or vertical. In temperament, never diagonal. So a blue, if you assess a blue, yellow, we may need to talk. Or a red, green, But what's important to that is the communication element of it. The red and the yellow are extroverts, so when they're communicating, they talk before they think. They outwardly process what they're thinking. The blue and the green, introvert, does not mean they don't like to be around a lot of people. When we're talking about communication, it means they inwardly process. So these people think before they talk, right? The red and the blue, task-oriented. They're going to wake up wanting to check a box of accomplishing something that day, getting it done. Why are we sitting around? The yellow and the green, people-oriented. They want to know who's going to be there, who's part of the team, how are we going to connect with them? So if you just knew that, that would change every conversation. But this is just the beginning.
And I want to touch base on what you just said really quick, the task-oriented versus people-oriented, because that was probably the biggest eye-opener in my marriage specifically. We've read the book 5 Love Languages, great book also, but my love language, my top one is acts of service. Shocker, I'm task-oriented. My wife's is quality time. And for so long in our marriage, we were like, why are we missing each other? Like, I'm doing all this work that most husbands, don't even think about to do, and intentional, it just wasn't even. And it's like, oh, because she is people-oriented. She just wants to spend time together, where everything I'm doing is because she's a green, everything I'm doing is catering to my red and blue style. I'm just checking boxes all day long. I'm like, look at all this stuff I did for you. And she's like, I don't even see it. I haven't seen you for 2 days.
Yeah. And she really doesn't. And she really doesn't care. Here, I love that you mentioned love languages, because especially in marriage retreats or marriage events, I get that a lot, like even in my office. Well, we've done love languages and we still can't even seem to have a conversation. Well, just think about what you said just for a second. You are a red, your wife's a green, which happens to be most marriages, which happens to be the hardest combination on the board.
Yeah, we've read that.
But because you're polar opposites, right? Let's go back to that love language book. What if yours was quality time, which it could be, even if you're a red, your love language could be quality time. What if yours and hers was both quality time? Or for example, they were both acts of service. Do you see the problem already? If you were both acts of service and you're red, the words you have to hear are different. Even though you have the same love language, her words she has to hear is different than yours. So it even makes the love language book more usable once you understand the temperament.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's good.
And if both of our love languages were quality time, I'd have to buy a 2-seat lawnmower. I don't even know what we'd do with that.
But believe it or not, it can be. It's incredible that, once you really start really honest, when you do an assessment, really taking off all the hats, that's what people now have a hard time.
Yeah.
It's just between you and God. It's not you as a dad or a brother or a son or a father. It's just, how did God wire me?
Yeah, that's good. And listeners out there thinking about how this is going to help you communicate when you understand this stuff. If you are, in a moment where you're frustrated, right? Your wife's trying to do something, your kids are doing something, you're in a hurry. It's going to build a foundation of how to respond in that moment to one, not hurt somebody else's feelings, but two, be more efficient, right? There's that piece if you're a good communicator, and then understanding yourself. So when people are communicating to you, you understand, you're able to reflect on, well, they said this, but they may have meant that because of my temperament and who I am. And so, I think it helps introspectively as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can give some very real thoughts on that just from our marriage again, where I am a red, our native response is anger, and we're loud, right? And my wife is a green. She has an innate need for peace and calmness and a centered household. So if I'm not very careful, even when I'm parenting our girls, if I have to raise my voice, that immediately can shut her down. And
absolutely,
that is some. But then for me, if I don't know her, I can feel invalidated and like I'm not doing anything wrong. And then I feel unseen, and it just is the cycle of I don't know.
Oh my gosh, you guys just hit on about 6 points we could talk about. I wish we had all day. I really do, because, you're exactly right. What we have to do is take that moment and do what I call paradigm shifting. You cannot give what you don't have. So you have to know you're designed by God first. You have to know, I go through this stair step: acceptance, awareness, application, authenticity. You have to know what your language is, what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your innate needs are, in order to even pour into your beautiful wives, right? And then your marriage then pours into your children. But we have to be able to take that beat to go, how can I get rid of this gray area? Because what I want your dads listening to know is most miscommunication is not intentional.
Yeah.
You're just not taking that power of the pause to realize every word you use is a word that you choose. So let's choose wisely. Is it lifting that other person up according to their needs and benefiting all who listen?
Yeah.
Right?
I have just a general question around,
Sure.
You said a minute ago, reds versus greens being complete opposites. Why do you, and we have met so many couples who are, if not all red versus greens, but who are the opposite temperament. Why is that, do you think? I know opposites attract, they say.
That's exactly why. Honestly, what you have to understand is your wife's strengths are your weaknesses, and your strengths are her weaknesses. So just primitively, we attract each other so that we can survive, right?
Yeah.
So most couples, 98% of couples, will have some kind of diagonal. It may not be their dominant. Like for my husband and I, it's our secondaries, right? So understanding that first is key, because if I was to ask both of you, give me 2 words of why you married your wife really fast without even thinking about it. Tell me really fast, other than she's pretty and she's, attractive. What other?
Yeah. Support for me.
Yeah.
And what's yours?
I would say very grounded for one thing, where I was not so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have just made my day, because I get this. I've done this for 28 years, that exact question. And I've never had anybody not say a strength of their spouse. Because when you guys were dating, you threw your strengths on the table because you were in pursuit of each other. You wanted to bring out the best in each other. You wanted to be the best version of yourself, authenticity, right? But then we get married. And in scripture, it says marriage will have trials, right? And what happens when you get married? You become content. And then guess what starts rearing its head? Weaknesses. And then all of a sudden you start to change that spouse to be more like you. Hey, why aren't you getting this done? Why can't you get more done during the day? Why can't you chill out? Why can't you be more detailed? Right? And then conflict happens. If I could get people to just stay in dating mode with their spouses, in dating mode, it would change everything.
That's a great
It would
point.
change the divorce rate.
Yeah, I can't agree more.
So you touched on this a little bit, the strengths and the weaknesses, but I think that was huge for me as I was reading, and even just learning about myself, is when your cup gets empty, or you use the analogy of your gas tank getting empty, right? And starting to sputter. And you are naturally going to fall into your weaknesses when you're sputtering. And so that was a big eye opener for me of like, when I'm doing this, I'm sputtering. I need to find a way to communicate that I need a cup filled. And then for me to be able to, for my wife or my son that obviously hasn't read this yet and may not pick up on those weaknesses, for me to be able to pick up on their weaknesses and understand, like, now's the time for me to pour into them because they really need this right now because they're sputtering. I think that was huge, really understanding the weaknesses side of things as well.
Man, that's so good and relevant in this season, because we were talking about this last night. Kelly and I were, I'm in a new role with a new company, and it's been exhausting. It's been a big ramp up the last month. We have a bright yellow 5-year-old who never stopped talking. and
never will.
And never will. And it is hard right now when you come home after being on 14 meetings of the day. I'm like, I want to hear everything that you have to say, but I'm so exhausted of words. And just not shutting her down. It's tough. Yeah.
Man, I thought about you as I was reading through the book this last week of, we're going to get into tailoring your parenting style and practical tips and that kind of stuff. But something you brought up in the book about the guides of kids wiring is your yellows, right? When they come and they're talking, like, they need to be heard. And by pushing them away, it's like, it's just going to get worse, bro.
Oh, she doubles down. Yes. She's like, no, I'm going to talk more.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happens is, one of her innate needs is attention, which doesn't mean she wants to be center stage. It means she wants your full focus, especially eye contact.
Yep.
Okay. So if she doesn't get that, if you're on your phone, if you're on your computer, if you're just like pushing, then all of a sudden her story becomes a bigger story. And then it's exaggerated and elaborated. And then it's all of a sudden is going to go into manipulate, spy. And then it's charm and flattery. And then it's just over the top. And unfortunately, what I see happen there is that then the child gets punished.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's where we're going wrong as parents.
That's something
See?
we have to be very careful of, because when you're tired and sputtering, like it is hard for me even not just like, Eden, we just need some quiet time, babe. Like, and not shut her down. And it's, which doesn't typically work anyway, but it does crush her spirit. So we have to be very mindful not to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think we've pretty much touched on kind of this next part to bring up, but I think the big key piece is the one size fitting, or the one size parenting fits all kind of model. It just doesn't work, right? You've got to understand each individual. You've got to understand what they need, what they don't need. And you can't just, like you just said it, right? Like, you can't punish the child when it's their, I don't know how to say this, but when it's their temperament really calling for,
That's who they are.
For interest. Yes.
Yeah.
It's who they are.
Well, something we were talking about before we started recording today is, Nate was talking about his son Pierce and how young can you start to tell? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. You can start to tell, believe it or not, as early as 9 months.
Oh.
Especially if it's a red temperament. Because
I believe that
child is pretty much already looking out of the crib going, hey, I need to take control of this family. They don't know what they're doing, right? They're looking, there are 2-year-olds that are pulling the stool across the kitchen because, they're convinced they can bake the cake themselves, right? So, all we have to do is look at the child's behavior and listen to the words that they say. Or even one I really like is, people go, how can I identify it? Watch your children when you take photos of them. In the photo, most likely you're going to be able to tell their temperament because the yellow is going to be up in front, the blue is going to be like the school picture, like, come on, don't you do this every year? You're like, so just taking that pause to listen, to understand and watch their behavior, you can identify a child very young. The second reason you can, and the probably my most favorite reason, is that children are the purest in their temperament until the world starts telling them different.
Yep.
When you were little guys, you were the purest in your temperament. You believed you could run the fastest and jump the highest and help dad build that shed, right? Until people started telling you you were bossy and you don't always have to be in charge and let somebody else go first. Or you're a blue and somebody's telling you, quit being so shy. You look at people when you talk to them. Or a yellow, you're too loud, you're too wiggly, right?
Mm-hmm.
All those words, if I was to ask your dads watching and listening, just take a minute and think about words that were spoken over you as a child. And I can guarantee you've pulled those into adulthood, and they're sitting in your subconscious every day.
No, that's good.
Yeah. And in your book, you talk about that, and I feel like that really jumped out to me of, so many parents where, I'm not saying this was my parents, but the style of raising it's kids should be seen and not heard kind of thing, right? And that's kind of how our generation may have been raised, and breaking some of those habits to say, like, hey, I got to move on from this. I got to understand who my child is. I've got to respect my child for who they are, and I've got to connect with them and bring them up in who they are. I mean, that was huge for me, just thinking through that. I mean, that's, we talked a couple episodes ago, we talked about respecting your kids. Like, your kids are not, they may early on just listen to you because you're the parent, but at some point your kid's going to age, and your kid's going to be bigger, and your kid's going to be able to make their own decisions, and they're no longer just going to do what you say because you're bigger and you're the parent. Right. And so that's where this key piece of trust and respect and understanding who they are comes in, and you really can't start this early enough.
No.
So
it's one of those, you're to raise them up in the way they should go.
Yeah.
They already have a calling and purpose in their innate wiring that God designed, not you. God designed it. And you're there to make that thrive. Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Well said.
Can you, I would love just to talk through a couple of practical examples of if, even in our case where we have a blue, maybe, I don't know, she's right on the fence of a blue and a red. She's a very strong-willed blue. We often, depending on the week, are like, I don't know if she's more blue or more red. And then the very high yellow. Can you give us some examples of like how parenting or even disciplining or correcting might look different between those two?
Yeah, let's talk about the first part of what you said first, though, because secondaries are very important. But what we have to understand is somebody could be like, I'm a 26 blue and 13 green. So if you meet me, it's pretty clear that I'm blue. Like you have to spend a little time with me to see the chill part of Kathleen, right? But then there's people who are very close, like you just said. They may be even like even red, blue or red, yellow, right? And that's okay too. They're just a little bit, you just have to identify that quicker in how you communicate with them. What I want your dads to know though, is that secondary is equally as important as the dominant. So what I hear men say a lot is, I'm red at work, but I'm yellow at home, Oh, no, that's an impossibility. Your strengths and weaknesses are available to you always, dominant and secondary. You are constantly filling the innate needs of both temperament colors constantly. Like I think one of you said your secondary was blue.
Yeah, both of us.
Right? Both of you. So as much as you're trying to fill loyalty, you're also trying to fill support at the same time. Like one doesn't outweigh the other just because it may not be as identifiable. So that's the first thing I want to say.
Oh.
The second thing is you have to know your child's temperament in order to, number one, discipline them, which discipline is not punishment. That's another whole episode. But if you get to the point that you do have to punish, can you imagine saying to a blue temperament that one of their innate needs is space and silence? Okay. Would you send that child to their room for a punishment?
I'm literally learning as you're talking. And why are we doing that?
That's a good point.
Do you know what that blue's doing when they're going up the stairs? They're going, yes, I get to read a book. I get to be in quiet, but here's the thing. The chances of a blue having to be punished is very low because blues, they punish themselves because they're so right and wrong. Like I have a blue son and when he was a little guy, I can remember walking through the foyer and seeing him sitting on the steps and me going, dude, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in timeout. And I'm like, okay, I didn't do that. Like, why are you in timeout? Like, what happened? So I sat next to him and got eye level with the blue. And he said, I got frustrated with Thomas and I threw him on the ground. So I'm in timeout. See, he literally put himself in timeout because he threw something he knew he shouldn't have thrown. That's an example of a blue, right? Imagine telling a yellow that they have to sit with the family or sit in the party and just be with the people until they understand what they did. What do you think they're doing?
You're going to go to that party for 3 to 5 minutes.
They're looking at the people and they're smiling and they're tapping their foot and they're telling them to come over, right? No.
That's funny because we'll send our yellow to her room and she will literally connect through they both have echoes in their room, Alexas, and they will connect. She'll be like, connect to Hannah's echo, and she will start talking to her sister through the echo. She cannot be alone.
There you go.
That's hilarious.
That's exactly right. So for a punishment, a yellow may have to miss the birthday party because their connection is so strong, right? Now, here's where it gets tricky. A green, you're not going to the party. Okay. They don't care. Go to your room. Okay. The greens are difficult. They're difficult to get motivated and they're difficult to punish because they're so laid back and so adaptable. So with a green, you absolutely have to find out what they're interested in, because greens are only motivated by what they're interested in. And then that's where the family value or the punishment comes in.
That's
that's
really
good.
interesting.
I'm sitting here analyzing as you speak. We were talking about me trying to break down my son and what exactly he is, but I definitely got a blue on my hands.
Yeah, no, he's blue.
He's the one. He's like, Dad, can I have a cookie? I won't tell Mama. I'm like, all right, you can have one. You've eaten pretty good. As soon as Mom walks in the room, Mama, I got a cookie.
There you go. Yeah, they can't do it. He would be miserable thinking he was keeping a secret from his mom.
Yep.
And so next, let's dive into how to communicate and how to really empower children of different colors, right? And so, I think we touched on the punishment. We've touched on categorizing them a little bit, but the next step is really supporting them and lifting them up, right? Especially as a father that may want my son to go into sports, and if he's a little more cautious and he's not as excited about that, how do you support them? How do you encourage them and really get the different colors motivated?
Okay, this is a one-word answer, and this is what the Grown-Ups Guide is all about, because this is years of seeing this go wrong. We've got to get rid of expectation. When you expect something and what you actually get, there's an abyss that happens. And in that abyss is where relationships are risked. The only time that you can use an expectation is if you understand the child's wiring first, period.
That's good.
If you expect your green, I had a dad that he was a blue-red and his son was a green, and he was a phenomenal pitcher on his high school baseball team, like off the chart, like could have went to college probably in, Major League Baseball. And the dad would come in and be so frustrated that he couldn't get the kid to practice. And he, just didn't see how, that it made a difference if he started the game and this and that. And then I said, can I meet your child? Can I meet your son? And I met this boy, and he was the most lovely, green young man I had ever met. He was kind, he was considerate. And I had to say to the dad, have you ever asked him about baseball? Like how important it is to him, or what about baseball is important to him? So he did. And what he said was, my team, being part of the team, being able to hang out with my guys. The boy did not even mention pitching. Didn't even mention it. And
That's
when
good.
the dad took him to college, he called me because he said he was actually quite emotional. And he said, I just dropped off so-and-so at college, and I noticed he left his baseball bag in the back of my car.
Oh, wow.
Okay. You don't want to risk that relationship because you expect something from your child that they're not wired to do.
That's huge.
You know what I'm saying? You have to know their wiring first.
Yeah, that's so good.
And this not only applies to, I know we're talking children, but, on the podcast, we talk about all aspects of life, right? And so we're talking husbands, wives, kids, we're talking work environment, setting these expectations of people and expecting them to live up to certain expectations you may have. And that's huge, of understanding why they're in it, why are they wanting to be here in the first place.
Yeah. I just think it's important for us to be aware of, and after you've become familiar enough with the material, it's like Kathleen said, I mean, you can really, once you get to know somebody long enough, we can pretty quickly now, like I may not have it spot on, but I could tell you within a couple minutes of meeting Tanner and having conversation, okay, this guy's, I think he's a yellow or whatever that may be. And once you get to know and not memorize, but just become familiar with what they need, what style is helpful to them and to help them to feel comfortable and safe, and it's very helpful in leading teams. I know I've got many team members even who hey, if I give you a whole bunch of tasks at once, I'm going to overwhelm the heck out of this guy. But if I just talk to him about one thing, focus at a time, he's going to perform much better, and give him space to process. And it's very helpful in all elements of life. And I feel like we talked about at the top of the show, where, we're starting to see, I feel like, more of a awareness of dads wanting to be more than just a dad, but like, I want to intentionally be the right kind of dad and change my generation and be a better dad than I had. Even maybe you had a great dad. Well, I know, like, for me, like, I didn't. I want to change my generation, right? And I want my daughters to come back around and always remember me for being a great dad. And I feel like this is one of the many ways that we do that, and that's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. So continuing to move through this, I know we're starting to get closer on time, and there's so much to get into and so much to dive into.
I told you.
This is tough. But so 2 to 3 just parenting tips that you want to stick out to our listeners. So I think the first one that really stuck out to me in reading, and you just said it, is setting appropriate expectations, right? You have to have the expectations that align with your child's temperament. If they don't align, you're both going to be left not only frustrated, but it's going to hurt your relationship. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a huge takeaway. What others?
Well, I think what I want men to understand is, first of all, temperament is not genetic. So you don't have a yellow child because you have a yellow wife for that. That's completely God's design. And with that said, let's listen to how powerful that is. You said you have a blue son. You said you have a yellow daughter. God specifically picked you two to be their dad. There's something in your red-blue wiring that God designed to make these two children the best versions of themselves through you being their dad. They didn't pick a yellow dad or a blue dad or a green dad. God picked you to be their dad. So you are responsible to know God's design for those children so that they can grow and honor the kingdom, right? So they can know what their strengths are, so they can know what their purpose is, so they can fly, right? And they can look back and go, it's because my dad heard me and he understood me. And that's what I want every one of those dads to know. You were picked to be your children's father.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's really good. Man, I'm reflecting now. I got kind of caught up in the statement that I think that was huge, right? And it is important because so many times we just kind of go through life falling into what society says a father should look like or a family should look like.
Yeah.
And there's so much more than that, right? Like, it's your job as a father to step back and lead your family appropriately and know, yeah, sure, it's fun to play baseball or be whatever parts of society that is right for your family. But at the same time, you've got to step back, analyze this, and you've got to set your family up for success. You've got to set your child up for success, and you have to raise your child in a world that may or may not support who they are.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge, and it's got to start at a young age.
Well, I know in season 1 we talked about, remember, that the enemy of intentionality is passivity, right? Or the opposite of intentionality is passivity. And I feel like this is just one of the incredible tools that exhibits being intentional and not just letting life and letting parenting happen to us and not just making it through the season and waiting for the next, but just being intentional. And it's the more things that I get intentional about in life, the better relationships and the better life goes in general.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, just think of what you're saying. What's more intentional than nurturing a human life? Like, really, really, what's more intentional than that? And then there's you, every man that's out there that's a dad. You want to lay your head down at night and have God say, good and faithful servant. Like, you represented me well with this child, right?
Yep.
And I want to speak right now to the green dads that are listening. The 2 hardest temperaments that walk the earth right now are a red woman and a green man. And I want to encourage them that whatever society tells you a strong man should look like or do anything, God designed you with that temperament. So that quiet, calm in the midst of chaos, adaptable man is equally as strong and purposeful as what we say. Red, men come in sometimes too bowed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what a man should look like, right? So God has men in all four categories because Jesus was the strengths of all of them. So that's what we're thriving to be.
That's good. Really good.
Well, Kathleen, I know, we're wrapping up. So many more questions and so much more discussion to be had. We very much, I would say it's probably pretty likely that we continue this conversation. And so, I'm incredibly grateful for you and your time today. I know you're very busy. If for somebody who, like Nate a month ago, had not gotten into your material, where is a great place to start?
Probably the website, the ISaidYouHeard.com website will direct you to all kinds of resources. And a lot of my resources are free, but it will also direct you to the books. And that's probably the best place to go. Awesome. And of course, the books are on Amazon, but that'll even take you there. So the ISaidYouHeard.com is the way to go.
And a quick plug for the books. As I knew this was coming up and I was like, all right, I want to dive into this and learn more. I looked on Audible, they weren't there. I was like, oh man. Yeah, and then I was like, all right, I'll order it and read it. And so I ordered it and this thick book came in and I was like, oh man, this is going to take forever, but it's not bad. It's the front part. It's an easy read. It's great information. And then you just have the examples in the back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh.
It is audio.
Very cool.
The front part of the Grown-Ups Guide, I did audio as an audiobook.
Awesome. Yeah. But where I was going is even if you're not a reader, it's not a bad read. Get in, dive in. It's worth your time. It's worth your, it's really a quick read with tons of resources in that book.
And I want to make sure your guys get the new edition. It has this little orange stripe here. So make sure if they get that, because that has bonus content in it. So.
Very cool.
Gotcha.
Well, Kathleen, I'll pray us out. But again, just thank you so much for being with us today. Yes. And man, it's been awesome talking with you.
It was great to meet both you guys. I think we're going to talk again.
Yes, I hope so. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, You're God, welcome. I'm just grateful for this opportunity to talk with Kathleen today and to continue the journey of intentionality as dads and as parents in general. God, I just pray that any parent or any person listening to this would just hear the words behind the message, and that they would be words that you have put forth through us and through our voices. And so, man, I just pray that good things would come of this, and that you'll continue to foster great conversation. God, we love you. We thank you for all you're doing through this podcast and through what Kathleen is doing through her books and all of her content. Thank you for putting her here and for putting this on her heart. God, we love you. We thank you for being such a good father to us. Amen.
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 What's up, Kingdom Dads? Thank you guys so much for listening in and watching today's episode. We are live on YouTube, all the platforms, X, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
All of them.
All of them. So many now. Anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like, subscribe.
Yeah, guys, gals, thanks for being here. As Andrew said, like, subscribe, comment, be part of this journey with us.
That's right. See you soon.